Elections have consequences. Elections have consequences.
Hey, everybody, good evening. How are you doing? Sandra Sheffred, host of Race and Races. All right. So we've been doing these shows I think consistently, at least for the last 6 weeks. And I definitely wanted to do a show today to talk a little bit about the post-election results. So there were some elections in Florida. They didn't turn out the way we wanted to, but they turned out the way that was expected because it was an uphill battle for the Dems to get those seats. But we were hopeful. We were hopeful that all the things that have happened in the last 70 something days would have made some people cross over and vote in a different direction that was truly in their interest and the interest of the country. But unfortunately, they didn't do that. But what did happen is that they made a lot of ground, right? So they made up a lot of ground. Places that were won with plus 30, they were won by only like plus 10, between plus 9 and plus 11. And that's a big deal. There were some counties, some counties that were flipped in the district. That's also a big deal. I'll talk about that more like in detail, but I just want to know that, let y'all know that I came on to talk a little bit about like what the election results were, what we're going to do moving forward, and that type of thing, right? Because we don't complain without offering some sort of solution. So again, Sandra Sheffred, I don't even know if I said it when I started talking because I just started talking. Sandra Sheffred, host of Race of the Races. We're going to talk about some post-election stuff. So what I need y'all to do, and actually people have been doing it in the last couple of weeks because I think we've been consistent, and some of the shorts are doing pretty well. So because of the shorts, folks are subscribing, they're liking the videos, watching the videos, particularly on YouTube, which is a good thing. So I want you to like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. Like the page, particularly on YouTube, like the Facebook page, and like the shorts, and also comment on that. I'm trying to get better at doing that part. Right? So like, share, subscribe, comment on the videos in order for it to make a difference. All right. So when I was talking about election results, we're going to talk a little bit about Wisconsin. We're going to talk about Florida. We're going to talk about some of the things I heard that's going on. And that's the only way I could say it. Some of the things I heard is going on because I don't know, because as much as I said that I was going to make a very serious, concerted effort to watch mainstream media news, I haven't been able to do it. So yeah, but I keep up because I read, right? So I definitely read, and I read different sources, so I keep up that way. But in terms of just sitting there watching 30 minutes of news, yeah, not ready to do that yet because it's just an absolute lot. And actually, you don't really need to do that to kind of know what's going on because there's always something going on. And interestingly enough, while you're sitting watching a 30-minute news cycle, some more things are going to happen. So it's always changing, it's always evolving. All right, so let's talk about Florida. So Florida. So like, share, subscribe, like the shorts, comment. Let's build up the platform. Because one of the things is like when I go in the community, people are like, oh yeah, I watch your show. I paid attention to the election results. Thanks for giving me that information and all that stuff, right? So that's a good thing. So we want to continue to be able to provide this information, and I'm going to try to, work on keeping these videos to a point where people can watch them without it being like, too much, right? You can listen while you're driving from one place to another. Most places take 30 minutes to get to anyway. So we're going to try to keep it at about that time. So yesterday, which was April Fool's Day, and I don't think a lot of people prank a bunch of folks, right? Because, we trying to get from one day to the next, right? So there's no time to be pranking folks. So what happened? So in Florida, there was Congressional District 1, which is near the Panhandle, which was Matt Gaetz' old seat. And Gay Vallimont was running for that seat. and she's like a gun rights activist. If you see her, she always has on orange because apparently that's the color for that level of activism. One of the guests that was on the show last week, Christine Alexandria Sanonjul, she actually stayed there the whole time. So she was there yesterday at what was supposed to be the victory party, but it was a victory party nonetheless, because Gay was able to turn one of the counties blue, which is a really big thing for such a red place, right? And she came very close. So she's one of the few Democrats that she's actually the first Democrat that actually came that close to actually winning that seat. So that's important to know. So that means that, even though it was a midterm and they actually had higher than usual turnout for a special election. So it wasn't even a midterm. It was a special election and the turnout was higher than usual. Because I think by the end, when the GOP realized that, oh, shoot, these people may really be able to pull this off, they started putting in resources. And so, folks who probably didn't even know what was happening. And I mean, folks, I say GOP folks who probably didn't know what was happening, that's going to vote red no matter what, even if it's against their interest. They kind of they came out on the last day and went ahead and vote, because at one point, Gay was in the lead, and then she lost. She ended up losing, but lost in that sense, but still a big win, and a win to the point where I think, because she has that name ID, she made such a big splash that that seat is very vulnerable, because remember, House members, they run every 2 years. So I think in 2026 there's definitely going to be a blue wave, and I believe it, because just what's happening in the last 70 plus days, people are becoming more aware. They're going to start suffering bigger losses, right? Because now it's just the talk of all the losses that people are going to feel. By the time 26 comes around, they're going to feel the consequences of all of the losses that's happening right now, because it may still not be as real because it's just talk and they haven't felt the impact. But once people are going to, by the time 26 come around, that cycle comes around, folks are going to start feeling the impact of the loss. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for people that are truly interested in doing that work, are going to be able to take advantage of the poor job that the GOP, the majority, is doing right now. So I think she has built up a lot of good name ID, and so I think she has a chance at it. And plus, the candidate, he's the reason why all your insurance so high, because there was not a raise or increase that the insurance people asked for that he didn't let folks get. And I think that message probably wasn't pushed out enough so people to know not. And then at the end of the day, some people are just going to vote party line regardless, and they're just going to vote against their interests. And that's just the unfortunate reality and the truth of politics, right? So Gay came in really close. Now, the other person, Josh Wheel, who was out of Congressional District 6, now that's the seat that I think his name is Michael Waltz. Mike Waltz left. And mind you, this is the National Security Advisor or something like that. He's the person that's doing war secrets in a text message. That was the seat that he vacated. And Randy Fine, who just got elected to his job in November, but decided to dip from there. They had to have, they're going to have elections for that seat and go ahead to the House, where he is going to do no more work there either, because he barely does work here. And he's a person that really doesn't need a job. Multi-millionaire that's taking jobs that's paying $29,000 in the Florida House. I think they make like $29,000 or something like that. So that wasn't a job. That wasn't, and he didn't go there to serve the people. He went there to serve himself and to serve special interests. So he'll get to the House, and I think the momentum, because it was only like maybe 60 days, maybe 60 to 90 days for them to all prepare for what was for the race, that they weren't able to pick up all the steam that they needed to. However, I think if they remain consistent, stay into community and explain and continue to just remind people and let them know what's going on, why the Democrats should be elected in those seats, or at least why those people shouldn't be reelected in 26, I think it's going to make a difference. So Gay Vallimont or Josh Wheel, neither one of them should stop campaigning. They should continue to campaign and get that message. And I believe that they're going to be able to get people to cross over by the time 26 comes around, and partly because people are going to start feeling the real effects of what's going on right now. So all of this policy is talk. They haven't felt it. You know, that affects the Medicaid, that affects the Medicare, the mass deportation of workers, because you want to call them migrants all you want, but they're also workers. And so when that you can't get your grass cut, tomatoes start costing $8. And you know, when watermelon season comes around and you can't find the dude with the big truck on the side of the road selling them, and then you got to go into Winn-Dixie and pay $20 for it, you know, people are going to start feeling this, right? Because part of why some of the decisions that were made in November was because, the price of, you know, groceries and shopping and everything was expensive. And I assure you, it's more expensive now to do any of those things than they were in November. And by the time 2026 of midterm election cycle come, all that stuff is going to be more expensive, right? And so if that argument is true and those folks are going to be consistent, then it's not like a whole bunch of people about to lose their job in 26, because they ain't gonna be able to say, I mean, when I say they, I mean voters are who voted that particular way will not be able to say in 26 that their life is better now than it was 2 years ago, and they can't say the cost of living and 26 is going to be less. I don't have no crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen, but the way things are trending, that's going to be the direction that they're going in, right? Now the labor, so let me go back. So again, Gay Valamont, keep it up. Josh will keep it up. Continue campaigning for those seats in 26. Some of you were able to raise some decent amount of money. Hopefully you didn't spend it all on ad buys and you still have it. And just turn that money into your 2026 campaign fund and continue to do the work. Knock on the doors, get your name ID up. Give people reasons to vote for you, because it's not always about why, you know, a lot of times some voters are tired of hearing why they shouldn't vote for the other guy, right? They're like, well, we don't want to hear why we shouldn't vote for the other guy. We need you to focus more on why it is that we should vote for you. And so that is something that those candidates should be able to do. And they're at an advantage, that they're on a momentum. They have the name ID. Keep that energy up and take that into 26 when you guys run for these seats again. All right. So that part. Now, the part about labor that I mentioned, we're seeing that now, because one of the things that that was in the news last week was the fact that our governor wants to say that it's okay for 14 and 15-year-olds to work overnight on a school night. What? Who's trying to do that? But some people gonna do that, right? Because some of it will be out of necessity. You know, that they may need to do that because as things start costing more and more people in the household may have to start contributing. And so people are going to be like, listen, I'm going to send my 14 and 15-year-old to work overnight on a school night at the expense of them doing well in school in order for them to help us stay afloat, particularly with the high cost of, you know, just living in Florida, right? So that's one of those things that's happening. And so, you know, and this may actually become law, and they will actually allow that. And that also trends with the GOP not really caring about education as much as they say, right? Because they're shutting down the Department of Education. They're taking truth out of curriculum, you know? So it's not like they want to educate the society, or they don't care if people are educated. So not only are you dumbing down the society, now you're telling them that they can go to work all night and be too tired to go to school in the morning, to the point where they just don't even have to go to school no more because they're taking the value out of going to school. And I hope parents that you're not in a situation where that becomes a necessity for your family, and you let these children just allow to go to school and get whatever amount of education they can get at this age before they truly have to get into adulthood, right? So we're going to hopefully the legislators, the House members, Senate members that people voted for and sent to go represent them say absolutely no to 14 and 15-year-olds working overnight. And like I said, I understand that may be a luxury for some families, that they don't have to allow their 14 and 15-year-olds to work. But what we really do need to think about is more in the long term instead of in the short term, because what you want to do is at least let your children get whatever amount of education they're getting, you know, in the schools or through curriculum, and then don't be in such a rush to put them in the workplace. And I do acknowledge that in some instances that's going to become a necessity, but let's try not to let that be at the expense of folks getting educated, because young folks getting educated, because that's a very short-term solution to what can end up being a long-term problem. So we got that to talk about. There's some ramblings that Trump may or may not be putting Elon Musk out of the White House. But before I talk about that, we're going to talk about Wisconsin a little bit, because that was another election, and that was for a state Supreme Court seat. Now, it's still not very clear as to why Elon Musk was so interested in a Wisconsin Supreme Court state race, to the point where I don't remember what the numbers are, but I know it was tens of millions of dollars that was spent on a state Supreme Court race. I mean, really? So, I mean, Florida, they're appointed, right? In Florida, the governor puts a name, send a name to the JQC or JNQ, whatever, and they appoint him. Then they go through a vetting process, and then that's how we get our Supreme Court judges in the state of Florida. They're not elected. Our state court judges are elected, but all the other ones are appointed. The circuit court judges, we have they're called district court. The district court judges in Florida are appointed. The Supreme Court justices are also appointed. They do go through a vetting process. Some judges on the lower courts, on the trial court, are appointed, but most of them, even if they have to be elected. And once they're elected, they have like 6 terms, or if they're appointed, it's usually to finish out the term of someone else, and then they have to run for the seat again, and they hold it for 6 weeks. That's my understanding. Somebody gonna fact check me or correct me if I'm wrong, but that's typically how it's done. So the fact that some states have it where Supreme Court justices have to run for their seat, that was news to a lot of folks who didn't know. And the fact that people are spending that much money because they have that much interest in a Supreme Court justice, that sounds like there was interests beyond that were basically compromising the judicial system, because judges are supposed to be nonpartisan. They're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to look at the letter of the law, interpret the law, and not be influenced by all these outside forces. And the fact that we're politicizing judges is a problem. It's really a problem. And we need to pay attention. And so when things go completely off the rails, and then we don't have our checks and balances, we don't have what the 3 co-equal parts of government, and we only have one person making decisions for everybody about everything. I don't know if that's necessarily the road that we really want to go down. So we need to really be careful and think about if that's what we really want America to look like, right? So we have to think about those things. So we have that, right? So we got and then so now back to Doge. So and Elon Musk, he was giving out $1 million checks, giving people $100 to participate in the process. And I'm just like, that can't be legal. That just can't be legal. And we know that ain't legal, because remember what Georgia was trying to do, that they got to the point where they didn't even want people to give folks bottles of water, because they were standing in long lines in the hot sun trying to vote. Okay. So they were criminalizing people, giving somebody a bottle of water who had been standing in line for hours at a time waiting to vote. But then somehow this man is allowed to give out $1 million checks and $100 incentives and all this type of stuff to encourage people to participate in an election. But what I have to say about Wisconsin, they ain't fall for that. They didn't fall for that. And they were like, yeah, bro, go do that somewhere else. And they did not select a candidate that was being endorsed and that they were paying people to go vote for it. People were like, nah, we're not doing that, right? So shout out to Wisconsin for doing that. There was some elections in Louisiana on Saturday. I think that's March the 29th, Saturday was. So there was some, and it wasn't for individuals. There were like some amendments and things that the people basically voted for, even though a lot of, 50 Cent got involved in that because he has businesses there, and there was something about taxing businesses, and he said no, vote yes for it because it would have benefited him, but it wasn't going to benefit anyone else, because part of what was going to happen was that they were going to be able to take money out of education, put it in some general fund, and leave it up to the governor on how they want to spend that, right? And that ain't usually good for the people for the most part. And the people, they rejected all of those things. So apparently all the voting that happened in Louisiana on Saturday was, people's, truly exercising their right to vote and doing what was in their best interest. So elections are local. It's important, and shout out for those people that was doing that good work and putting that information out there. So what we're going to do. So another thing, so let me give some updates on some stuff that's happening in Florida. I don't even know if it's update. They're still protesting at the Tesla dealerships every Saturday. So if you want to do that, go ahead and do it. That's not my ministry for now, so I won't be doing that. I will try to take my time and come out and just get on the platform, get on the show, talk about as much as I can, letting people know what's happening with the political process, what it is that we can do. Stay engaged as much as you can, but protect your peace. Don't consume all of this information, and also understand that a lot of the energy that's happening right now, because I know one of the things the president wanted to do was do all of these things in his first 100 days. That's what he wanted to do. So he got probably like another, it's a little less than 30, got a little less than 30 days for him to do his 100-day check. And then we'll see what that looks like. I'm in the immigration space. So it's not looking good. A lot of it is really terrible. It's just real terrible because they're deporting people that shouldn't be deported. They're deporting Americans that shouldn't be deported. And I'm not gonna make that seem as though they're just sending out droves of Americans, but Americans are getting caught up in all of this, and it's happening. People that are lawful permanent residents that have status are getting caught up in this. Folks who did all the things the right way, they have court dates coming up, are getting caught up on this and getting, sent to other countries or moved to places that's making it more and more difficult for them to have access to attorneys to help them with their cases. And that's just not, that's not a good thing, right? And one of the, there's some FAFO happening with certain communities because they voted and supported this administration thinking that they would not be impacted. And it turns out that they too are being impacted, because at this point, I'm telling you, everybody can get it. Everybody can get it. And this thing, these decisions that are being made, they're extremely inhumane to the point where people are losing their lives. Folks are sleeping on the floor. Facilities are overcrowded. The only person that's making money is like Core Civic and all of those detention facilities because, they're getting paid per body. Not necessarily providing any kind of quality service or treating people in the right way. So we can't be okay with this. Like, we really shouldn't be okay with this, right? And then, they're sending people back to countries that they're not from, even if it's a mistake. And I've been in this space for a long time, that if someone was sent somewhere in error or by mistake, the government brought them back if that's what they were supposed to do. Now, apparently they're acting like they can't do that. I'm like, what? Yes, you can. And you have, and you should, you should, and you can. Like, what do you mean you can't? You can. And they're just making so don't listen to when they say, oh no, we can't bring those people back. Yes, they can. And they have, and they done, and they should, right? Particularly if you illegally sent folks back, right? So we need to see. Now, there's also some arguments. How one of the judges was like, listen, I told you to, with all the funding stuff that's going on about giving people, the immigrants, allowing them to have their hearings before they sent back. I think it was a judge in D.C. that made that decision, and he's saying that it extends to states more than just D.C. So we have to see. But what's happening is that we're dealing with an administration that just kind of don't care, and they just gonna do what they want. And we have to pay attention to that, because again, if what's happening now doesn't affect you, there's something that's going to happen later that's going to affect you. So we should just care. We should just care about people, period. So the immigration stuff is not okay. And most people would agree that if there was someone that had an opportunity to come to the United States and they squandered that opportunity by engaging in criminal conduct and doing bad things and they have to get sent back, people would understand that no matter what part of the political aisle that you're on. But if you have a person who, because there was a couple, for example, that was sent back a couple of weeks ago who had been in the United States over 30 years. They were working, had business, had adult children, did all these things, no criminal history, paid their taxes, or, if they were whatever, but they were not doing anything that was negative to, there's no negative history besides the fact that because there was no comprehensive immigration in the last 20 or so years, there was no way for them to get lawful status in the United States, right? But they've proven to you that they're not a criminal, that they're not bad people, but those individuals were sent back. And that can't be what this should be about at all, right? Because that person is proven that, that they're not going to be a problem to the United States. And, one of the things that folks, again, aren't thinking of is that a lot of those folks, they actually do pay taxes. They pay taxes because we pay taxes when we work. We pay taxes when we purchase item. You're taking money out of the economy that how are you going to bring it back? It's not going to be enough 14-year-olds to go take these jobs and bring that money back into the economy. These businesses aren't going to be able to provide the service at the level that they were. I mean, there's a whole bunch of businesses companies that's going out of business. Party City, AutoZone is closing shops. And part of the reason why a lot of these companies are closing is because those tariffs they're trying to convince folks is not a problem and that it doesn't impact the consumer. It absolutely does. There's a list of businesses that are going to close because they're not going to be able to operate, at least in a profitable way, because of the tariffs that are coming and just the cost of, just what everything is going to cost. So they're closing down, and they may have been at the brink of maybe needing to restructure before they finally just made the decision to close. But it's believed that this whole thought of a tariff is part of what just took them over the edge. There's like, what? We're not going to be able to recover from this, or we're not going to be able to continue with this business model. So we're going to go ahead and close businesses. And when businesses close, it affects everyone. That means people who are working in those places don't have jobs anymore. That means that if people relied on those companies or that location to get what it is that they were looking for, now they have to go somewhere else. I know Walgreens is also on that list. There's there's hundreds of Walgreens stores that are going to close in the upcoming months, right? So again, this affects everyone, and these jobs are going away. And what's coming in their place? Where are people going to work? What are they going to do? And they're slashing federal employees. And I know there are going to be some folks who be like, they weren't doing nothing anyway. And I don't care that they're losing their job. I mean, you got to care, because again, that's money that people were making that they were putting back into the economy. That's not there for them to put back into the economy anymore, right? And then, we can't be okay with people being put in positions where they may not be able to support themselves or support their families. So, it's yet another wild week. And I hope we're not getting to the point where we're becoming desensitized and numb to all of the things that's happening, because it's just been a series of wild weeks since January the 20th, right? So let's just hope that we still really understand that a lot of this is not normal. A lot of this is not okay. And we do need to resist in the way that we can and do what we can do. Continue to call those elected officials, your House members, your senators, and tell them that you don't agree. They're going to be trying to get some tax stuff passed, and that tax stuff is only going to benefit the top 1% or the very rich people, and it's going to hurt most of the folks in the middle. It's going to hurt most of the people in the United States. It's probably going to hurt the people in the middle the most. So we need to resist this, and how are you going to do that? And also pay attention to how these folks are voting, who they're aligning. And I'm talking about both political parties. Pay attention to what it is that they're doing. And when they come around and the end of 25, beginning of 26, and trying to convince you to allow them to keep their job, pay attention to what they're doing. Pay attention to what they didn't do and how they didn't support, and don't send them back. And so this is an opportunity for people who are truly interested in public service, and they truly want to come and serve their community, for them to start putting in that work get engaged with community and put your name in that ring, put your name in that hat to go run for office. We have some state races, like Florida House seats and Florida Senate seats that are coming up in 26. So local people, pay attention to that. County commission seats are going to open up again. Pay attention to those. And if you want to go to DC, House of Representative seats are open every 2 years. Pay attention to those, and start putting that work in early. Start raising that money early, because all these things are getting expensive. Money is important, but contact and getting people to support you is more important, because at the end of the day, you can have all that money, but if you don't have them votes, it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna wrap this episode up. So Florida, you did good. You didn't do what we all wanted to have happen, but you've laid a foundation. You've laid down the groundwork. So everyone's going to have to pay attention in 26. And I think if you continue doing the work, continue engaging with community, continue giving them reasons to vote for you, and make them more aware of what's really happening to them, so they cannot fall for some of the okie doke, not even the okie doke, they're just straight up lies, right? Because one of the things that happened, that folks were straight up lied to. They were lied to, and they wanted to believe that the folks were going to do the things that they said, so they were lied to. So literally let them know that they were lied to, show them how they were lied to, and on top of that, give them the reason why they should vote for you, and you have to, in order for them to do that, they have to trust that what you're doing is something that you're really going to go do. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. And I will see everybody next week. Hopefully, I think I'll be able to do an episode next week. Actually, no, I'm not going to do an episode next week. You know why I'm not going to do an episode next week? Because next week, there's going to be a town hall, right? There is going to be a town hall, and the flyer is actually posted on my on the Race and the Races Facebook page. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. But there's going to be a town hall next week, and it is going to be at 6 o'clock in Fort Lauderdale at the New Hope Baptist Church. That address is 1321 Northwest 6th Street. It's going to be a town hall, and you know what it's about? The high utility bills, right? The high utility bills in FP&L hikes. And you know who's responsible for it? That Patronus guy, who just went to DC. So there's going to be a town hall. There's a whole bunch of co-sponsors in this. Florida Rising, Fate in Florida, this Clio Institute, Catalyst Miami, Rethink Florida Energy, and I think it's something called the Central Florida Jobs with Justice program, right? They're going to have a town hall on the high utility bills and FP&L hikes on Wednesday, April the 9th. It's going to start at 6 o'clock. It's going to be in Fort Lauderdale at the New Hope Baptist Church, and that address is 1321 Northwest 6th Street. Okay, so you can register at floridarising.org/events. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. You can register at Florida Rising, Florida Rising, FLORIDARISING.org/events. Go ahead and register to attend this town hall about the high utility bills and FP&L hike, right? Wednesday, April the 9th at 6 p.m. in Fort Lauderdale, New Hope Baptist Church, 1321 Northwest 6th Street in Fort Lauderdale. All right, so I may not have a show. I probably don't have a show. I won't have a show because I'm going to be at this town hall next Wednesday. So see you guys at the town hall. And then I'll see you the following week. So have a good night. Thank you again for your time. Thank you again for your time.
Elections have consequences.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. Like, share, and subscribe to the page. Thank you. Have a good night.